So like I said, you're going to take notes in each quadrant as we go through each component of a culturally rich classroom. Okay, so let's talk about building relational capacity. Building relational capacity is critical in order to move dependent learners to independent thinkers. So all week we've been talking about student talk. How can we put the heavy lifting on the students? A culturally rich classroom ensures that students are doing the thinking and the heavy lifting. You guys are going to go home very well rested this year, because you're not doing as much heavy lifting. Relational capacity refers to the level of trust and safety between teachers and students, but also between student to student in your classroom. So what are you building? Do you have the ability to build a safe classroom culture? Okay, so do your students feel safe? Not just you building that relationship, but setting up your classroom so that student to student, they have good, positive, safe relationships. Classes in high relational capacity are characterized by energy and comfort, where students feel mutual ownership in the expectations and learning with the classroom. So our expectations are high, we're feeling safe, but we're going to make sure that everyone knows that the expectation is that we're all going to learn together. Okay? Okay, so what I want you to do, you don't have to write everything down. I'm going to put the PowerPoint in the share tray. Okay? So what we're going to do in our groups, when I say go, everyone has yellow strips of paper. Okay? You're going to grab a strip of paper. There's 4 questions, so some of you are going to have the same question. So independently, read your question, write the answer to your question in your ITM, gauge your table whenever you find someone else with a different question than you. It's done. Turn and talk, share your question and your answer, and discuss. So we're going to give about 5 minutes. So grab a sheet of paper, you can start, read your question, answer independently in your ITN, discuss with someone who has a different question than you at your table. Okay, Jocelyn, forever. So did anyone have a partner that shared something insightful with them? Anyone want to share out something that their partner said? Coach Abshire?
We had, do you know areas where your students excel, and the first thing you said was technology, like their phones, things like that, that they like, sometimes they can show us how to do something on our phone better than we can.
So the student culture of 2018 is definitely technology. So coming up ways with how you adapt to that culture. Anybody else? Nice.
So my partner put, her question was, how does the diversity present in the classroom influence how you develop relationships with your students? So she wrote, the diversity present in my classroom influences how I develop relationships with my students because it is a reminder for me to celebrate and understand other cultures other than my own. Great.
Let's give them a water call.
Thank you, Ms. Miles.
So our focus is our instructional focus is student talk. So the academic language strips, we're wanting our students, that if they feel comfortable in our classroom, if they feel relevant and empowered, they're going to want to do more to voice their opinion and have something to say. The English language learners, I always tell them, I said, it is so exotic for you to use your accent to speak English. I said, don't be embarrassed. It's beautiful. I said, now, me with my Texan drawl trying to speak your language, then I sound a little silly. So we wanted the students to feel safe, to have a cultural relevance in our classrooms. They wanted to speak out more.
So I think, and one takeaway with empowering student voice is when we talk about student talk, which we've done a lot of this past 2 weeks and will continue to do that, it's not just an aid to help students learn the material. You're helping them have a voice, become a student who feels confident in their own learning, helping them be an independent thinker. So this takes it just a step further, because we all know that you have, in order to be successful in life, you have to be an independent thinker and you have to feel empowered in your own voice. So when we talk about student talk, it's not just an instructional strategy, it's a life skill. We're helping our students develop life skills, okay?
Because you think about 21st century, they are going to have to speak in job interviews, phone interviews, college interviews, or just phone etiquette. So with the language skills that we're teaching them in the classroom, they're going to utilize that outside of the classroom as well.
Okay, so your third quadrant, holding high expectations. So culturally relevant teaching practices inform instruction through a cultural lens that recognizes that although learning structures differ across cultures, expectations should not be lowered. So this was something very powerful that we took away this summer, is of course you're going to connect with a student in your class that is very similar to your learning style, your personality, okay? So of course I'm going to assume, because we're connecting in the classroom, I know you've all had a student that you really jive with in the class. You're assuming that that student is getting the material more so than other learners in your class, okay? But having a culturally relevant classroom recognizes that learning structures differ. Our expectation never lowers. So we may provide supports, we may use a plethora of strategies, we may, in our PLC process, look at how our students are learning in first period, but our expectations never lower. So students are going to learn differently. It's our job to connect, be relevant with that student who may see instruction through a different cultural lens. But I think the key is that the expectation for the student is never lowered. And we talked about this the other day. Mr. Bollinger said our beliefs about certain students are a risk factor. So this just says, once again, to reiterate that we have to hold high expectations for our kids. Okay, so every team has a large chart paper in the middle of their table. So you're going to look at, every team has a different question. I want you to look at that question, and as a team, determine some best strategies that represent your team's response. So if you need a poster, you can use images, you can use words, strategies, whatever your question is. I need a visible representation of your answer. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna do something called a power explanation. So someone from your team is going to stand up. You're going to read your question and then pick one of the best elements that your team came up with to address your question. So, Vicki, you're going first. Vicki and Vicki.
Why is the use of collaborative structure so important for diverse learners? And we put lots of things, but it exposes students to a variety of cultures, so it's not just about them becoming a
Who wants to go next? All right, Ms. Johnson.
So, our question was, how do processing strategies help students organize their thinking? So,
better they understand what they're
Great, all right. Mosquito, shoot, shoot, shoot. Killed it.
You want to take us to practice?
Bill?
Yeah, but they're gonna see how hard they can get.
Our question was, in what ways can educators teach students to read and write using academic language? And this is the power standard, and pink is the international standard color. Being intentional in our team planning by incorporating academic language. Don't just hope it happens.
So it is our opinion that peer support was the main one. We basically said that sometimes we say it, but the kids don't really understand it. But if they hear it from a peer, then they get it.
Okay, is anyone brave enough to share? Miss Bertrand, what are you great at in your classroom? What are you going to commit to work on, and how are you going to work on it?
One thing I will continue doing in my classroom is greet my students at the door with smiles. One thing I will do differently is not use sarcasm. It's part of my sense of humor, so my steps I will take is just be more conscious of when I use my humor. Also, I think it's sort of very nice that we'll check each other.
We're going to check. Oh, so you have an accountability plan. I heard a lot of sarcasm. People saying, I'm going to try to avoid sarcasm. That's me too. And that was a hot topic in our training because that's a lot, ingrained in a lot of personality and humor. But not all cultures understand sarcasm. So you don't want to run the risk of a student thinking, she hates me. This is not a safe class. Even though 25 of your 27 kids may think you're hilarious, you don't want to run the risk of the 2 students not feeling safe in your class. So Ms. Miles, what do we got for Ms. Bertrand?
Bertrand, we got firecrackers. Ready? Guys, one thing
I would like to improve is referencing text by a variety of authors in my classroom. To do this, I plan to provide a culturally rich environment that includes posters, books, and references.
Great. So I hope today you took away some strategies to make sure that your classroom is culturally rich. We're going to continue CRT training throughout the year. There's a lot more to learn. We're not all experts, but we're going to learn together. But I also hope that you're tying everything that we talked about with all of our instructional strategies that we already have. So it's one moving component. So I hope you made those connections. The last thing I want to say, Tavia and I both have this book. There are tons of student strategies, note-taking, all that revolve around culturally relevant classrooms. So you're more than welcome to borrow this at any time. If there's a huge line, then maybe we can look at ordering some. But there's tons of activities, tons of note-taking options in here. So you're more than welcome to borrow this from our office at any time. Just make sure you bring it back, okay? Y'all have been great today. I think we're going on a 10-minute break. So what time is it?
So I just want to say that Miss David nailed it today. So I want everyone, we're going to do the nailed it. Okay? Ready?